Hey everybody, this is Tyler from Tyler's Comics. Happy Halloween! And I'm just inking a page from the second issue of my horror comic and anthological archive of Great Ghastly Horror. So, my Kickstarter is still going for exactly a week from today, and we're sitting real close to 60% funded. Um, that means we have unlocked two milestone bonuses so far: a glow in the dark sticker for all physical backers, and also a mini print of the Lizard Man of South Carolina. It's a poster print, you know. So anyway, I don't really know if anybody's going to show up when Halloween is on a Friday. I recognize that there is a slight possibility that people might have stuff to do. So I'm just gonna sail through. There's a lot of spotting blacks to be done on this page. So I'm just gonna focus on getting some of that done. Hope everybody's doing well. If you're taking little critters out trick or treating tonight, be safe. Um, so my wife and I live on 20 acres in rural Utah now, and suffice to say, we do not get trick or treaters. And I kind of miss that from where we lived in Washington. We were in a suburban neighborhood, and it was a new neighborhood, and it's one of those. It was one of those neighborhoods that's like, um, you know, Quadrant Homes was the developer, and so it was the houses were like 10 feet apart, and you know there were, I forget how many designs you could pick from, but there were a lot of the same houses on the block, and the developer would do things like reverse the profile of the house, that kind of thing. So you technically it gave variety, but you could totally tell that like 17 other people in the neighborhood had the same house as you. But the cool thing about it was for Halloween we would get like this. You know the part in Lord of the Rings when they go down to oh my gosh, I can't believe it's in Fellowship of the Rings. It's where Gimli's like, "Hey, we should go here," and Gandalf's like, no, we're good." In the book, Tolkien, or at least in one of the later editions, Tolkien called it Dwarrowdale, but it was Moria. Yeah, Moria. So they go down to Moria, and I think it was Pippin accidentally wakes up. He makes a noise alerting everyone to their presence, and you have just that absolute horde of goblins that shows up. And it was kind of like that on Halloween. So like you go out on the front porch, and there's just like this sea of kids coming down the sidewalk and in the streets, and then like a lot of the parents are like, I'm not walking that far, so they're like trailing behind in their eco-friendly Subarus and minivans and all that. But like, so we would, the first couple of years that we lived there, we gave out Rice Krispie treats, and I don't mean the little Rice Krispie treats. I mean like the Costco Rice Krispie treats. So we're like, we're gonna rock Halloween. Now it was like the first house we bought, and we're like, we're just gonna slaughter Halloween, right? So we, leading up like months before Halloween, like starting sometime in the spring or summer, like we would just buy like a big box of these Rice Krispie treats from Costco and put it in one of the closets. And so we'd have this huge stock. And uh, after the first or second year that we lived there, like kids started remembering, like we would hear kids say like, "Oh, this is the Rice Krispie treat house," or not even Halloween, like just there would be kids walking home from school, and you'd hear somebody say something about the Rice Krispie treat house. So it was just kind of funny. And you know what? Our house never got toilet papered. I'll tell you that for sure. It did get egged once, but that was probably somebody that I fired at my regular job. So anyway, the so we would count. So we were giving one of those out per kid because it was a pretty big treat. And then, like kids would be like, "Can I get another one?" And we would be like, "Come back later, and if there's we want to make sure there's enough to go around. If we still have some left, you can get a second one." Um, after the second or third year, like, we actually ran out, and my wife had to run out to the grocery store and just get, like, regular, like, the fun size candy bars or whatever. And it just grew every year, and, like, people were driving to our neighborhood from other parts of town just because it was convenient for the kids to go, like, door to door when the houses are only 10 feet apart. So we started counting, and we would get, like, I think we got, like, 450 kids in one night, like, at our peak year, and that was probably the when, like, Halloween was on a Friday or a Saturday or something, and the weather was pretty good. So yeah, I do miss the trick or treaters. That was fun. So, like, we would always try to, like, it was kind of a goal that, like, we're gonna make our porch scary enough to where at least one kid is gonna be afraid to come up here, and we always did. So, like, we would carve, like, a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns. If we I think one year we had, like, 12 jack-o'-lanterns or something like that, and not just, like, the standard, like, we were getting pretty creative with them, and we had, like, you know, just a bunch of props and stuff out there. And every year there, and like, we had the steepest steps in our neighborhood where, like, we had the only staircase that the leading up to our porch, and it just had to do with the topography of the ground. The developer was actually required to put a handrail on our steps to be up to code, and we were the only house in the neighborhood that was like that. So you get, like, towards the end of the night and kids are, like, trudging, like, oh my gosh, it reeks of effort. But it also, like, if you're kid size and you're at the bottom of our stairs and you're looking up and we have, like, the skeleton hanging from a noose and, all these jack-o'-lanterns and this gargoyle with light up red eyes and all this stuff, and sometimes we'd be out there in costume, like, when you're looking up at it that way, I think it made it more kind of intimidating and scary for the kids. And, you know, so, like, there'd be this kid that's like, I'd be up there holding the Rice Krispie treat, and be like, "If you make it up, you get the Rice Krispie treat," and his mom's like, "Oh, go on, little Billy," and he's like, "I don't wanna go up there," and I'm like, "Oh, you don't get the Rice Krispie treat then." So, good times. And then, so actually my wife and I started dating on Halloween because 'cause we're both horror nerds, and that's how we roll. So this is our, I'm gonna do math. This would be our, we've been together 29 years now. That's crazy. And that ink cartridge is finally running out, so I'm going to switch over here to another one I've been trying to wear out. Okay, actually, I think that one's pretty well worn out too. So bear with me for a moment. I need to actually put a new brush tip on here, 'cause I was waiting until that wore out to do it. Actually, and I think that one's worn out enough to where I'm actually just going to throw it away. And it'll take a minute for that to kind of prime up. So while that is, so I don't know if you can see this, but the bristles, like, I'm not transferring any ink onto my finger yet. The bristles are kind of a medium brown. They'll turn black when the ink wicks down there. So I will just do some line work with this one while I'm waiting. I used so this is actually the second time I've inked this page, because the first time I did it, I was doing it on the toned paper, like all of the first issue. And then I I've been diving into watercolor on my dinosaur comic, and it's been going well. And I know I'm not going to use Copic markers for coloring anymore. So I was like, am I going to use watercolor on the second issue now? But that paper, it's just not watercolor paper, and I figure, I'm going to get a better result on um, with watercolors if I use watercolor paper. And I like the toned paper, but it would be, I feel like I'd be kind of shortchanging myself on the benefits of watercolor paper if I did that. So I was talking about running a poll and seeing what people like better, but I think I've pretty well just decided for myself that I want to, at the second issue mark, I think it would be probably best to switch to watercolor, because I was working on the project image for issue 2, and I did that in watercolor, and I did kind of actually, I'll show you. Some of you might have seen this, but I did do a test of the first page in watercolor on watercolor paper, and I just think that's going to be the way to go. So I might um I might put I had inked a couple of pages from the story on the tone paper. I might just put those inked pages up as Kickstarter rewards when I launch this issue. Um, so now that I am getting on with this first issue launch, and I'm sitting about 60%. I do feel that the book will fund. The way Kickstarter works, usually have a dead zone where everything just kind of goes dead after the second or third day, and then it picks up again towards the end. And part of that's because Kickstarter sends out messaging to your previous backers and also to people who followed your pre-launch page, and kind of remind them that time is running out. And that sense of urgency, fear of missing out, gets people to kind of kick it in high gear the last few days. So I have a backup plan if it doesn't fund, to sort of restructure things a little bit and come back with an adjustment. But I'm hoping that it funds, and I believe it will fund. So I feel pretty good about it. And now that I feel like I'm kind of in like Kickstarter mode, like I'm I've only done one campaign before, and that was a quick starter for just a poster print for Bat Squatch. So that's my first comic running right now, and I feel like now that I'm started and I can kind of see how it's going, and get some ideas of like what rewards are more popular and all that. Like it kind of removed like a mental block for me in a way. And I'm like, I'm actually excited to work on the other campaigns I have going. Um, after the first issue, so assuming the first issue funds, the next one will probably be, I might do just a one-page comic print for my dinosaur comic to kind of get a little bit of interest in that and kind of dip my toe in the waters. And I've already started working on. I have a poster pretty much. Well, the pencils are done. And it would be like an Allosaurus poster because the first story in there deals with Allosaurus. The Or I might just wait until the first issue's ready and launch that for the dinosaur comic. But I do kind of like the idea of having the smaller campaign to run while I'm still working on the comic. the Hang on. Let's see. How is that coming along? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Make sure I'm in frame. By the way, the story is, if you were wondering, An Arrest by Ambrose Bierce. I'm kidding. I mean, it is, but I know y'all are smart enough to figure that out for yourselves. Excuse me. I am getting a text for a work thing that I need to go take care of, so I'm gonna have to cut this off early. Um, I will probably go live again tomorrow to do some more inking on this. And happy Halloween, everybody. Be safe. Have a great time. It's fun. And I will see y'all later. Bye.